Summer ball is in full effect, and we have got you covered here on the breakdown for any or all the action you may have missed. This is the place you're going to want to be your one-stop shop for the entirety of the BC Junior A Lacrosse League. Welcome back to the show. It's Tino Fera. It's Megan Kinna back for another episode. Megan, clearly the broadcasting game did not scare you away because you made your way back.
I'm back, baby. Here we go.
We love to hear it. We love to hear it. Well, we got to get right into these games because there was a ton of action over the last week's worth since we last recorded. And we'll kick things off right off the bat with the New Westminster Salmon Bellies and the Langley Thunder. Might the Langley losing streak come to an end? We will see. We'll kick things off at historic Queen's Park Arena, home of the Bellies and home of this matchup against their opponents, the Langley Thunder. Here's our first look this season at Thunder backup Owen Byers. Unfortunately for him, though, this is a clip of Aiden McDonald just blasting one inside the post. Follow that up, Mr. Board, Cooper Board, then made it 2-0 before the 3-0 run would be wrapped up by this beauty of a shoveler by Brandon Kirby. He's fired up after this one. I am as well. But hang on a minute. Fast forward. After Langley got within striking distance, Sam Wallace between the wickets of Arjun Gill. Second period, tied 6-6. Cody Todd winding up from outer space. Sniper! New West, though, would get it back before the end of the period, leading to this. Lincoln Twomley. I sure hope he's a fan of Lincoln Park. Langley would get one more to give them a chance, but it was too little, too late, and the losing streak would march on. For now, I should say. For now, because Langley did have another game before we get to the end of this episode. We'll break that down here shortly. Megan, this was very much so a game of runs, with Langley getting the opening 3 goals. There's the final score for you, 10-9. New West takes it at home. New West gets the first 3. Langley answers back to tie before the end of the period. Langley then goes on a 3-goal run throughout the second period, which actually put them up by 2. A little bit of momentum on their side before New West then goes on a run of their own to eventually tie the game, take the lead, including what would eventually be the game winner with 1 minute and 29 seconds left. We just saw that one, Lincoln Twomley. This was a battle of backup goaltenders, sort of. Arjun Gill got the start for New Westminster. Boris Maximenko would come in before, or midway through the second period, I should say, in relief of him. And then Owen Byers, as we saw, got the start for the Langley Thunder, giving Caleb Kahn his first break off of the season. He did play a little bit of the minutes he came in, but Owen Byers would be credited with the start and finished the game as well. Austin Vanachuk was a force for Langley in this game. He had himself a 5-point evening, 1 goal, 4 helpers, including that last goal that we saw. I mean, like we said, it was too little too late, 37 seconds left. He cuts the lead to 1. But it's sort of like what we talked about last week with Langley, of like those little victories a little bit. A goal even in the final minute to cut it down to 1, to give your team a chance. That's an important one for this Langley Thunder to kind of stack some of those little victories. And while this is a team that's likely not happy with the result, they can still take some excitement from some of those little victories as those start to stack a little bit. And keep in mind, they're still without their 2 number 1 overall picks on this team. They have Parker Doyle, who is the 2025 first overall pick, has yet to play a game this season, and Cody Malowski, who was the first overall pick back in 2021. He is still waiting to come back into the lineup. My question for you, Megan, is when you have, we haven't had a chance to see Parker Doyle yet. I'm not going to pretend that I've watched a bunch of his games from minor lacrosse. So I'm still waiting to see what kind of player he is as well. But a lot of us have gotten the chance to see Cody Malowski play at such a high level. He plays over at Denver University. He has played the last couple of seasons with Kquill on a couple of Minto Cup runs, including a successful one last season. What kind of dynamic does somebody like Cody Malowski add to a lineup when he does get in for this Langley team? Like, what kind of a player are we talking about here?
Yeah, we're talking about someone who is gritty, who is able to score a multitude of goals in a multitude of different ways. He is definitely someone that you can count on, someone that you can rely on to score, a lot of goals and put the ball in the back of the net. I'm super excited to see what Cody Malowski can do for the remainder of the season once he comes onto the team, and he's going to be a huge impact player for these guys.
He absolutely will be, as he is pretty much everywhere that he goes, whether it be in field lacrosse or here in box lacrosse. All right. We got another game to move on to, so let's take a look at the Delta Islanders facing off on the road against the Burnaby Lakers. Pay attention to the clock here. Jared Masnick is the opening goal scorer. He got things started off just about 2 minutes in, not even 2 minutes later, all of a sudden it is 4-0 Islanders. And just take a look at that Lakers bench. They look rattled, but at least they look good in those old throwback Cablevision jerseys. Masnick was not finished. I mean, I guess he was a little open there. You can't teach that stuff unless you attend Harvard University, which of course Jared Masnick does. Second period, worse turns to more worse when Caden Lee mishandles the loose ball, leading to this wraparound by Jaden LeBerge. Kai Hartley found his second of the game, but it would also be far too little too late. And the final score, as you can see there, and you'll see again in a minute here, a lot to a little, I guess you could say. 15-5 would be your final. Yeah, there she is. Okay, so we said on the show, or I said on the show last week, Oscar Lucas is a guy that was sort of tasked with carrying this offense for Burnaby. Right on cue, the episode wasn't even posted yet. Found out he was traded later that day.
There he goes.
So that was Burnaby's first game without the likes of Oscar Lucas. And when you're somebody that has, like mentioned, been tasked kind of with the offense, and then all of a sudden the team is without him, obviously a pretty different looking situation. Caden Lee gets his first. We're going to look at the trade board right there. Oscar Lucas for Caden Lee. This is actually the second straight year that Caden Lee has found himself dealt over to the Burnaby Lakers. This was his first game with his new team. Delta, as we just kind of saw, they started hot, they continued hot, they finished equally as hot. They scored 4+ goals in the opening 2 periods, as well as finishing off with 3 in the third. I want to talk about Oscar Lucas here for a second, because he is now somebody, he's a fourth-year junior, still has another senior after this, but he's coming from this Burnaby team where there's been a lot of inconsistency to start off the year, maybe a bit of a down year or a disappointing year, we can say. He's now getting an opportunity to go over to a Kquill team as a fourth year and get back in the mix with a team full of culture, like a team that really thrives on winning, and ideally, in their eyes, go and have a quality run here at another Minto Cup. When you are a player that's been stuck in an environment, I shouldn't say stuck, that's a bad way to put it, but I'll say it just for lack of a better term here. Stuck in an environment where there has been that inconsistency and there has been that continued losing. And then you get moved to a team where culture is everything, winning is everything, like the Kquill Adanacs. How would that reinvigorate a player like Oscar Lucas to continue to have a strong year?
Yeah, I think when you're stuck in an environment where it's not the best, it's not the worst, but you're also really fighting to have the whole offense on your back, kind of thing. It's a tricky scenario, and once you get the opportunity to have get onto a roster like the Kquill Adanacs, that's going to be really rejuvenating, like you said, and he's going to have other guys to rely on where he can utilize other people and be able to score some goals, that kind of thing.
Burnaby as well gets a little more consistency in net with Caden Lee. As mentioned, he is this is the second time in his career, going back to last year as well, where he's been dealt over this Lakers team. So it's a different environment, but not totally different. He is still somewhat used to that Lakers jersey, that Lakers floor, the Lakers colors, you name it. And brings a little bit more consistency to their goaltending position from what they've seen this year. For the Delta Islanders, Jake Young led the way in terms of points, 4 goals, 4 assists, and then Jared Masnick. I'm blown away that he goes to Harvard. I found that out last week when I was preparing for that game. I'm pretty confident he was the smartest man in that arena. He is probably oftentimes the smartest man in most arenas that he plays in. But yeah, he had another big game, 3 goals and 2 assists en route to a 5-point evening. Next one on tap was the Burnaby Lakers getting back at it against the Langley Thunder getting back at it. Might the losing streak end on this one? Spoiler alert, it did not. Yeah, tough. This is a battle of the winless, and Burnaby would get the better of the Langley Thunder in this time around. I give a lot of credit to the Burnaby Lakers in a game like this. Langley got off rolling. They were up 4-2 after the opening 20 minutes of action. This is where I give Burnaby credit, though, because I think in the circumstances they've been in this season, I think it would be very easy to kind of pack it in when you see yourself in a deficit, even though it is just a 2-goal hole that you find yourself in. Burnaby then went on and rolled their way through the third period, outscoring Langley 3-0, 4-0 if you include the very early goal they got into the third period before Langley got themselves back onto the scoreboard. Langley would eventually tie it in the third, but again, Burnaby was just able to bear down and secure their first win of the season, which is big for morale. You know, it's again sort of into that category of little victories, just trying to stack things wherever you can. I just think, you know, this was, like I said, a situation where I think Burnaby really could have packed it in, and they didn't. They battled back despite some of the disappointment they've had so far this season. So, Megan, I want to put you now into the shoes of Burnaby's head coach, Ty Yanko, or just put yourself into the shoes of, you know, Burnaby head coach in general. If you go into the intermission, your team's trailing 4-2, and this is just 48 hours-ish following a game where you kind of just got thumped at home. What is the message that staff can give to this team that sort of juices the guys to be able to have a big second and third period?
Yeah, let's go. I mean, we only have the moment that we're in right now, and let's try and put together some small wins and really try and rejuvenate this offense and get some goals on the board. Yeah.
And it worked out for them, like we mentioned, because they did end up winning this game. We can throw the final score graphic up on the board because the final was 9-8 in favor of those Burnaby Lakers. So they finally get their first win. And the Langley losing streak. My, oh my, oh my. Again, if you missed it after last week's episode, we go ahead a week forward, so you can probably do some math here yourselves. As of today, Tuesday, June the 3rd, 2025, the Langley Junior A Thunder have now spent, it's been 709 calendar days in a row since their last victory.
Yeesh.
Yikes. Okay, Burnaby's got a busy next stretch ahead. We can take a look at some of their next games. They'll get underway tonight, actually, at the time of recording. They'll play on the road against the new Westminster Salmon Bellies. June the 7th, they take on the Nimo Timbermen, and then they go back-to-back against the Victoria Shamrocks. I think all of those are on the road, if I'm not mistaken. And the Langley Thunder will get back underway in a few days from today as well. June the 5th, they'll be back on home turf, I guess I should say, against the Delta Islanders. That is going to be an interesting one to watch. Next one on tab will be the Kquill Adanacs playing on this very floor behind us, the Palace and Poirier, against the Port Kquill Saints. This one went down last week, and this was actually the first time that these two teams faced off against each other since the Minto Cup.
Whoa.
Day 2 of the Minto Cup. So there's a big history here, and of course, Kquill picked up right where they left off. Newly acquired lefty Oscar Lucas did not wait too long to get the monkey off of his back. You can see him here, faking, taking, shooting, scores. It would be 3-0 before the A's, or for the A's, before Poco would finally find their footing. Jordan Meach, transition. Stop me if you've heard that before. Okay, now, second period. Keep your eye on the ball here, kids. Josh Mills, you can see him in the middle of your screen. He has it. Josh Mills doesn't have it. Jack Kask thinks Josh Mills has it. Really, Andrew Cowan has it. And Andrew Cowan has his 6th goal of the season. But that would be the last goal for the Saints, more or less for the rest of that game. 9 straight from the Adanacs from that point forward, 5 of which Nathan Chalmers contributed to. 15-6 would be your final score. Now, Megan, we're going to break down the hidden ball trick in just a moment here, but we got a little surprise for you because
now I think I know what's
you are somebody who has seen a few hidden ball tricks in your days. You were also a part of a pretty, I would say, iconic hidden ball trick. If we can now flash it back to September of 2024.
Oh, God.
Utica, New York. Keep your eye on number 12 there, the left of your screen. Everybody on the Netherlands thinks Megan Kinna has the ball. Really, it came over to the near side and into a yawning cage. We can roll that back a few more times here. I want to hear your thoughts.
Okay.
Tell us what's going on here.
Power cradle. Do as many hard cradles as you can. Look like you got the ball. Take it all the way into the corner, and boom, Dana's got it. Then Erica Evans slings it into the back of the net at the end there.
Unbelievable.
Yep,
I've never seen a harder power cradle, I think, in my life.
I was going hard.
And so now let's go back to the hidden ball trick that we saw from this Kquill versus Poco game. Again, Josh Mills, Andrew Cowan. Let's break this down here.
Alrighty, yeah, Josh Mills has the ball on his stick and then he places it down on the ground. Cowan picks it up. Same old story. Boom, goal, back of the net.
Boom goes the dynamite, as they say.
Yes.
I've never seen, I don't think, a hidden ball trick where the ball starts off on the ground.
I don't think so either.
I mean, everybody obviously has seen the ones where it's just like you kind of hide it behind your body. Like, what goes into a quality hidden ball trick, especially in a case like this where the ball does start on the ground? It's such a unique position.
It's all about deception, You gotta deceive everyone. It's like a little magic trick for the crowd and for the goalie too, because they don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and in that case, most of the defensive unit as well. That was pretty unbelievable. This game would be defined by a 9-0 run that Kquill went on, which spanned through the midway points of the second period, all the way through to more or less the end of the game, at the very least, the late stages. It was dominance by Kquill after a brief push by Poco, which included that hidden ball trick. I believe, if I remember correctly, that cut the lead down to 1 in the second period. Nathan Chalmers, I mentioned him in the highlights. He led the way with 7 points, 3 goals, 4 assists. He was, at the time that I wrote these notes and at the time of this game ended, he was the league leader in goals after that game. A little bit of foreshadowing. That's not quite the case anymore. There is now a new league leader in goals. It was, as well, the first game in his new colors for Oscar Lucas. And that can be kind of an intimidating situation to have to take on, I can imagine, at the very least, especially when he's played, I believe, his entire junior career to this point for the Burnaby Lakers, now comes into this Adanac squad. And end of the game pretty strong. 3 points, 2 goals, 1 assist, one of which we saw in that highlight pack as well. This was another game for the Adanacs where they let Jack Cask have, at the very least, some of the third period off. They bring in the backup goaltender for the remainder of that. And I think that this is going to pay dividends for this Adanacs team late in the season when the games matter more and more and more. Like you could have an incredibly well-rested Jack Cask. Come playoffs, come ideally in their eyes Minto Cup, like we'll see what the season unfolds. But if Kquill is able to keep this up and still try to limit the minutes of Jack Cask, I think that could be huge for this Adanacs team. For Poco, Josh Mills and Andrew Cowan, as we saw on that, led the way, each with 4 points. A little bit of trivia here. I don't know if trivia is the right word, but they had an identical stat line: 3 goals, 1 assist.
Okay.
They both had 4 points. One of them had 3 goals, 1 assist. The other one had the opposite. Without looking at your notes, do you think you could guess which one had which stat line?
Josh Mills had 3 goals?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Correct, absolutely. Andrew Cowan is one of the best passers in the entire league. Great, good job.
Thank you.
Okay, next one on the list will be the Nanaimo Timbermen, and they faced off against the New Westminster Salmon Bellies at home. Every game that New West plays in right now, I am just so excited to watch. They are, quite honestly, one of my favorite teams in the league to watch right now. Just what we've talked about with their trajectory, just where they are in their rebuild. I think this is a very exciting team to watch on for the future. Just really impressed by them with what I've seen so far. That being said, we also did talk last week about this Nanaimo team and how senior they are. A lot of seniors on this team, and how that can play a factor late in games and also late in the stretch run of the season. We kind of saw that in this game, in my opinion. This was a 5-3 game in Nanaimo's favor by the end of the second period. They'd go on to score 5 more goals in the third period, including 3 in the opening 2 minutes and 43 seconds. That's kind of the experience, the knowledge that I'm kind of alluding to here when talking about this Nanaimo team. And they just peppered Boris Maximenko in goal, 53 shots throughout the entirety of this game. Megan, everybody talks about lacrosse being a game of runs, and we kind of saw that. But in the heat of the moment, throughout the emotions of the game, when you are on the opposing side of said run, like New West was in this case, what is that like? Like, what are you, aside from obviously trying to score a goal to end the run, what kind of things are you doing, are you saying, whether it be on the bench, on the floor, to try to get your team out of this run that's going against you?
Yeah, we've talked about small wins a lot of, last week. I think it's getting a lot of those small wins and, like you said, trying to end that run. One of my coaches once told me that it's like chain lacrosse. You're chaining together plays and you're trying to break that chain. So we are trying to break that chain and really try and focus on the next play.
Words to live by, I would say.
Go.
Chain lacrosse. Yeah, we can throw up the final score graphic of this one. As mentioned, 10-6. Nanaimo took this at home over the New Westminster Salmon Bellies. And we can take a look at some of these two teams' next games coming up as well, or at least Nanaimo's next game coming up. They will be at home Saturday, June the 7th, where they will take on the Burnaby Lakers, and then they have back-to-back against the Poco Saints. That one will be on the road, however. They will be in Poco for that game. And then the New Westminster Salmon Bellies, their next game, we kind of already talked about this in terms of Burnaby, but tonight at the time of recording, Tuesday, June 3rd, at home versus the Burnaby Lakers. By the time this comes out, this game may have happened.
Ooh.
Who knows? The standings may be updated. Who knows? We will see. Next one on tap will be Kquill versus Victoria. And this one went down last Sunday afternoon. 2 games in 2 days or plus travel, I should say, for the Kquill Adanacs, but no problem for them. And this was likely the reason why Pat Kquill gave Jack Kask some time off in the third period of their previous game with the travel involved there, and just to give Kask a little bit more of a breather. This was the second meeting between these two teams already this season. And if we can flash it back here real quick, because for the first meeting was a very dramatic one that went in favor of the Victoria Shamrocks. Victoria trailing 8-4, just under a minute into the third period. We can see some of the goals here. Victoria would score the next 5 in a row, including Dylan Anderson's, which you're going to see in a moment. It was his second of the period, and he scores with 3 seconds left in regulation from distance. That would, of course, be the eventual game winner. That game as well would have been Victoria's second in 2 days, and they were on the road. They played the first one at home, the second one on the road. It's identical to how this one shaped up for Kquill. They played their first game of this kind of stretch of games at home. Second one was the next day on the road in Victoria. This time, of course, the Adanacs do end up outlasting the Victoria Shamrocks. Final score was 15-11. We'll see that in a moment here. I want to talk about Jackson Dillon, though.
For sure.
This is a name that people, if you're not already, you should get very familiar with. He put up 3 goals, 4 assists in this game. Now, at the time of recording, he is tied for the league lead in points with 32. He's tied for the league lead in assists with 18, and he leads the league in points per game at 5.3. This is kind of the point I want to make here is, especially with him playing that game in Victoria, like he's an island kid. So he's playing in front of friends and family, I'm sure. And if we can run it back to the 2021 BC Junior A entry draft, you can see here he was a second-round pick, 10th overall to Kquill. And if you look up at the first round, Victoria has a pick in the first round. I wonder if at this point, seeing what Jackson Dillon has done throughout his junior career, if the Shamrocks are kind of kicking themselves a little bit that they let this guy slip out of his fingers. That's just an unbelievable player, and he continues to just march his way through his junior career. Megan, what can you tell us about Jackson Dillon that maybe we haven't seen, or for anybody that hasn't maybe seen him, what can you tell us about this player?
Yeah, Jackson Dillon is an absolute ruthless player. He is able to score from a lot of different angles. He is crafty, he's gritty, and I think he is outstanding. I mean, it really surprises me that he was a second-round draft pick in 2021, and yeah, he's just proven those people wrong this time around,
It's pretty unbelievable. And it's funny, a few years ago when I was starting to get familiar with him in my early days of calling like Kquill games, he's obviously earlier in his junior career, and I noticed him a lot more for his interior game, like getting to the middle a lot. And then of course last year, you see his perimeter game as well, like he's such a sharp shooter. But last year, all through the regular season, through the Minto Cup, it's like he has an office just outside the dotted line, and he just like stings corner after corner.
Absolutely.
It's just unbelievable, man. This
cool.
kid does not miss. So yeah, the final score in this one, Kquill 15, Victoria 11, as you see right there. And Kquill's next game coming up on their schedule will be a rematch of the previous Friday. This one will go down this next coming Friday. They get another chance to take down the Poco Saints. That one will be June 6th, as mentioned, on the road. They will be in Poco for that game. Next one on the list, speaking of the Poco Saints, it was the Delta Islanders playing host to those Poco Saints. It was another one of those 2 games in 2 days kind of situations, this time, however, for the Poco Saints. And special teams continue to be a factor or a point of emphasis, however you want to word it, for Poco. And I mean that in a couple sense. In this case, they go 0 for 2 on the power play. Delta goes 2 for 3 on their own power play, and Poco allows 2 more shorthanded goals in this game. Clearly a point of emphasis that they would like to address here as the season marches along. Final score here, obviously it's 8-7. That being said, though, 6 of those goals for Poco come from forwards, like not a bad number. The point that I'm getting at here, though, is 5 of those 6 goals for the Saints come from lefties. They get 1 goal from a right-handed forward, and that was Nolan Ross. He was the lone righty to be able to beat Jet Burns. Poco's right side was like my point of concern, I would say. I think probably a lot of people's point of concern for this Saints team. And when you look back at this team last year, after the trade deadline, in terms of the righties that they had available to them, just listen to this list. Silas Richmond, Austin Lamoureux, Finn Halliday, Hunter Meyer, among some others. None of those guys that I named are on the team this year. All of them age out. So I kind of mentioned this on the first episode of the breakdown. It's an entirely different right side, and I think they are still kind of figuring it out a little bit. It leaves for a ton more responsibility on the left-handed forwards. You and I spoke last week about how beneficial it can be to have multiple hot sticks going in a game at the same time, especially from different areas of the floor. If you're one of the lefties on this Saints team, and coming into the year, you're kind of aware at this point that a lot of the scoring is going to come through your side, or it's going to come through your stick. Mm-hmm. What does that do for, not only just how you approach games, but the mental side of things as well, the physical side of things as well? What does that do for your mindset when you're entering a new season, when there's a lot more responsibility on your plate?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of weight on your shoulders to handle the offense. In my opinion, I would like to see a little diversification on the offensive side and see some more goals coming out from the righties for sure.
Definitely. For Delta, this was a big win for them after taking out Burnaby earlier in the week. And especially in that Burnaby game, that was a game that they felt that they should be winning, right? They feel like they're a better team than that Burnaby squad. They get the job done. Now they're going against this Poco team who is in the second half of a back-to-back. While it's still a good Poco team, Delta feels in that case that this is still a game, given the circumstances, that they should be winning. And they ultimately do get the job done. And this is kind of what I was talking about earlier with this Islanders team in terms of getting different contributions from different guys. It's not necessarily just one guy continuously stepping up. It's a lot of different cases. We talked about in the last game how it was Jake Young, it was Jared Masnick. In this one, it was Scott Williams stepping up with 4 goals. And not only that, 4 goals on 8 shots. This kid was a 50% shooter in this game. Yeah. Pretty good, snaps all around. Pretty good odds, I would say, when Scott Williams has the ball, especially after that one. And again, as mentioned, the final score in that game, 8-7 in favor of the home team in that case, the Delta Islanders. I said it. I think they're kind of a dark horse team.
Okay.
I think they could sneak in. We'll see. We will see. Don't quote that though, please.
I'm quoting you on that.
Next one up. Delta playing another one. This will be against the Victoria Shamrocks. This was the last game of the stretch of these last week's worth of games. Not exactly an entire week's worth. Of course, we recorded on Tuesday. Now this is the following Tuesday. In that window, Delta's the only team that had to play 3 games in that stretch. So pretty grueling stretch for this Islanders team. But they went right at the Victoria Shamrocks, who started the game stronger, I thought. They seemed like the more well-prepared team, and also not exactly an ideal situation for the Shamrocks team in the sense that they're oftentimes, if they're playing a weeknight game, they're typically playing the Nanaimo Timbermen. Of course, the other island team travels a lot easier, a lot more realistic. This is a Monday night game where they have to take a ferry across to play the Delta Islanders.
Ew.
That being said, it is, I mean, the Ladner Leisure Center is kind of neighboring with the Tsawwassen Ferry Terminal. So of the not ideal situations, like I guess it was the most ideal, but still a tough circumstance for Victoria to come into. But like I said, they looked like the more prepared team early on. With that, though, kind of a change to the schedule for these Victoria players with having to hop on a ferry, and the coaches as well. A lot of these guys work in day jobs on a Monday before having to come over. You're likely hitting like a 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock ferry kind of thing. It was a 6 o'clock game time. How important or how much does it affect a performance of a player or of a coach when you don't necessarily get to stick with your regular game day routine? Like, how important is a consistent schedule and a consistent routine for players?
I think a consistent schedule is huge. I mean, it's probably game-changing, I want to say, for a lot of players. But that being said, you kind of have to be versatile and malleable with your schedule. And even if you can't have a super consistent routine, then adjust on the fly and be able to do it like Victoria does.
As mentioned, I thought that Victoria was the more prepared team in this one, regardless of the circumstances. If not for 2 first-period power play goals for the Delta Islanders, this one could have been off the rails early based on the way Victoria looked in the early stages. And they got really timely goals, timely contributions. After Jake Young tied the game, Delta did battle back in the second period. After they tied the game, Ryan Lowe then wins the next faceoff, goes down and scores. It was 7 seconds later that he found the back of the net. Speaking of versatile players, Ryan Lowe does so much for this Victoria team, as he did last year as well. It's another game where, like, I give a ton of credit to, again, spoiler alert, Delta does end up losing this game. But I give a ton of credit to them in this one, in the sense that this second period, they've been a strong second period team. And they do a lot in that frame to be able to battle back and keep things close. Obviously, just don't ultimately get the job done, which is not ideal in their favor. There was one major turning point for me, though, in this game, and I think anybody who watched this probably knows what I'm talking about. In the third period, there was a 5-minute major penalty assessed to Philip Busenius, and in that case, Victoria sort of loses 2 key defenders in that Busenius gets ejected, Hudson Jenner has to come over to serve the major, so you lose 2 defenders for an extended period of time, but Victoria kills off the entire major penalty. That ends up, for my money, ends up being the difference maker. And then Jet Klassen, Mr. Celebration, I'm calling him from now on. This kid just loves to celebrate a goal. It's unbelievable.
Why not? Go for it.
Why not? You know, like I said last week, there's a few where I don't even know what he's doing, but I like it. I like what I'm looking at. He now leads the league in goals. Remember that foreshadowing from earlier? There you go. Jet Klassen now leads the league in goals with 18. And I put here in my notes, I already mentioned it, but I just want to make it, okay, I guess you can quote me. Delta is sort of my dark horse team.
Okay.
Pretty.
There you have it, folks.
Yeah. Okay, write it down. Write it down. You can quote me. There's your final score, 11-8 in favor of the road team. The Victoria Shamrocks go into the Ladner Leisure Center and get the job done. Before we close things out, we got to update the BC Junior A standings because there was almost an entire shuffle based on what we saw last week. Kquill remains up at the top there, 5-1 record. And Victoria, with their win, just last night at the time of recording, they jump up a few spots. They leapfrog some teams, sit in second place, 4-2, and then those final 2. Can I call them a dark horse team if they're currently in a playoff spot? I mean, it's early.
No, they got to be a bit lower to call it that.
What's crazy, if we just keep this up on the board here for a sec, looking at the standings, if we even think back to last year's playoffs, we could see almost an entirely different playoff picture compared to last year. We had Kquill in first overall last season. Second place was the Poco Saints. Third place, I believe, was the Nimo Timbermen. That's right, because they played Poco. And then Burnaby rounded things out in the fourth and final playoff spot. I feel, I mean, knock on wood, but I feel relatively confident that Kquill is going to be in a playoff spot come the late stages of the season.
Feeling confident in that as well.
Yeah. The remaining 3 spots could be entirely different from last year.
I want to see Langley up in there.
Who
Let's
knows?
Go, Langley.
Maybe there's a dark horse.
There's my dark horse.
Write that one down.
I'll write it down.
Write that one down. All right, folks. Well, that's going to do it. Another episode of The Breakdown. Megan Kinna, thanks for coming back for another one.
Thank you for having me.
Hope you're going to come back for more and more.
I don't know.
Sugar.
Sugar.
All right, well, thanks for joining us for another episode, and as per usual, we will see you next time.